The San Antonio Spurs are down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and in the entire history of this league, only one team has ever climbed out of a 3-1 hole in the finals and won the title. One. So is San Antonio cooked, or do they actually have a real path? I'm not going to give you a feeling. I'm going to build an actual percentage from the matchups, the season numbers, and this series. Here's the real math on a Spurs comeback. Here's the build. First, the brutal history. What's actually happened to teams down 3-1. Then the case for hope. The regular season matchup that says these teams are closer than the scoreboard. Then the case for doubt. What this specific series has shown. And finally, we'll turn all of it into one number. The percentage chance the Spurs come back. Every input is verified, and I'll show every step. This is Game is Culture. If you like real probability instead of empty hot takes, hit subscribe. We're chasing 1,000, it's free, and it genuinely helps. Now the history, and it's harsh. First, the brutal history. Let's start with the worst news for Spurs fans. In NBA Finals history, teams that take a 3-1 lead have gone on to win the title 37 times out of 38. That means the team trailing, where the Spurs sit right now, is 1-37. A single comeback ever, the 2016 Cavaliers. As a raw base rate, that's about 3%. Widen the lens to every playoff round, and it's only a little kinder. Across all of NBA playoff history, somewhere around 13 to 15 teams have ever come back from down 3-1, out of hundreds of chances. That's roughly a 5% success rate. So no matter how you slice the history, a 3-1 comeback is rare air. The honest starting point is somewhere between 3 and 5%. But here's the key idea that makes this video worth watching. That 3 to 5% is an average across all teams that ever trailed 3-1, and most of those teams were trailing because they were simply worse. The question isn't what the average team does, it's whether these specific Spurs are better or worse than that average. And the matchup says something surprising. The case for hope. Look at the season profiles. The Spurs offense rates 119.6, the Knicks 119.8. Basically identical. On defense, the Spurs are actually better, 111.3 to 113.3. And in net rating, San Antonio finished higher. By the season numbers, these are not David and Goliath. They're two nearly even teams. This is the whole reason the Spurs aren't a pure 3% team. They aren't an overmatched underdog that backed into the finals. By the season's full body of work, they're a coin flip with the Knicks, maybe even a hair better. And they have Victor Wembanyama, a player good enough to win any single game by himself. A near-even team with a superstar is exactly the profile that can, occasionally, pull off the rare comeback. The case for doubt. Now the bad news the season numbers hide. In the 4 games of this actual series, the Knicks have outscored the Spurs on average 107 to 105. So the team that's a hair better on paper has been the lower scoring team head to head. When you've played 4 games, what's happened in those 4 games matters more than the 82 that came before, and it leans New York. And here's the cruelest detail of all. To come back, the Spurs have to win Game 5 at home, Game 6 in New York, and Game 7 at home. 2 of those 3 must-wins are in San Antonio. But in this series, the Spurs are 0-2 at home and 1-1 on the road. Their best basketball has come away from home. The comeback path runs straight through the building where they've struggled most. Building the number, so let's turn it into per game odds. Using the same matchup model that nailed Game 4 and adjusting for home court, the Spurs are about a 58% favorite in Game 5 at home, roughly a 42% underdog in Game 6 on the road, and about 58% again at home in Game 7. Those are the 3 doors they have to walk through in a row with no mistakes. And that's the killer with the comeback. You don't get to win one of 3. You have to win all 3. So we multiply the probabilities together because every game has to break their way. A near even per game team still has to string together 3 straight wins. And even good odds in each game shrink fast when you chain them. run the multiplication. 58% times 42% times 58%. That comes out to about 15%. So on pure matchup math, treating each game cleanly, the Spurs have roughly a 1 in 7 shot to win 3 straight and steal this series. Already, notice that's far higher than the 3% the history books would suggest, because these Spurs are genuinely good. But that 15% is a touch generous because the clean multiplication ignores 2 real things. 1, momentum. This team just suffered the worst collapse in finals history, blowing a 29-point lead, and that scars a young group. 2, their home struggles. 2 of the 3 games are in San Antonio, where they're already 0-2, so we shave it down a little, to be honest. Put it all together, and my honest estimate for the Spurs to come back from 3-1 and win this series is about 12%, roughly 1 in 8, not the 3% the history books scream, because the matchup is close and Wembanyama is a cheat code, but nowhere near a coin flip because they have to win 3 in a row, starting in a building that's owned them this series. Let me be clear about what 12% means, because people misread odds. It does not mean no chance. 1 in 8 things happen all the time. If you flip to Game 7, anything can happen in a single night. But it also means the Knicks are heavy favorites, around 88% to close this out. 12% is real hope. It's just not the way to bet. What flips it? And the whole thing hinges on Game 5. Win it, and the odds for the rest jump. Suddenly it's just win on the road, then win 1 at home. And the pressure flips onto a Knicks team that let a closeout slip, but lose Game 5, and the comeback collapses back toward that 3 or 4% history. So the real number to watch isn't 12%. It's whether San Antonio finally protects its home floor on Saturday. So there's your answer. Not 0, not a coin flip, about 12%, roughly 1 in 8, for the Spurs to pull off only the second 3-1 comeback in finals history. The matchup gives them a puncher's chance. The history says don't count on it. Where's your number? Higher or lower than 12%? Drop it below. And if you want the math behind the moments, subscribe and join the family.